The night Caleb Morris agreed to fill in for his friend's blind date, he did it with the quiet desperation of a man who had nothing left to lose. He stood in the dim bathroom of his small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, staring at a cracked mirror, adjusting a tie he hadn't worn since his wife's funeral 3 years earlier, wondering how his life had narrowed to borrowed favors and last-minute decisions. He wasn't looking for love, or hope, or miracles. He was just trying to survive one more evening without thinking about overdue bills, a failing car, and the small pair of sneakers by the door that reminded him every single day why giving up was not an option. Before the story truly unfolds, let me ask you something from the heart. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one unexpected moment can change a life forever, please take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Caleb was 36, a single father raising his 8-year-old son, Noah, after cancer took his wife, Rachel, faster than either of them could comprehend. Since then, life had become a careful balancing act between work, parenting, and grief. He worked long shifts as a maintenance supervisor at a mid-sized apartment complex, a job that paid just enough to keep the lights on but never enough to feel secure. Each morning began before sunrise, packing lunches, tying shoelaces, and promising his son that someday things would be better, even when he wasn't sure he believed it himself. Nights ended with exhaustion and quiet prayers whispered into the dark. The blind date was never supposed to be his. It belonged to his co-worker and closest friend, Marcus Bennett, who had been excited and nervous in equal measure. But when Marcus came down with a sudden flu, he begged Caleb to step in, insisting it would be rude to cancel at the last minute. Caleb resisted at first, knowing how ridiculous it sounded, but eventually agreed out of loyalty, and maybe a faint desire to feel like something more than a struggling widower for one evening. He told himself it was harmless. Just coffee. Just an hour. Nothing would come of it. The restaurant was an upscale place near downtown, all warm lighting, polished wood, and quiet confidence. Caleb felt out of place the moment he walked in, his worn jacket and modest shoes betraying a life far removed from luxury. He scanned the room, heart pounding, until he saw her sitting alone at a corner table, posture straight, hands folded calmly, eyes observant but gentle. Her name was Victoria Hale, though he wouldn't learn that until later. In that moment, all he noticed was her quiet presence, the kind that didn't demand attention but somehow commanded it anyway. Caleb took the seat across from her, already rehearsing an apology in his mind, unsure how to explain that he wasn't the man she was expecting. As the minutes passed, something unexpected happened. The tension he carried everywhere began to loosen. Victoria listened with genuine interest as he spoke about his son, his work, his late wife, and the exhaustion that colored every part of his life. There was no judgment in her expression, no pity, only understanding. She spoke in turn about leadership, responsibility, and the loneliness that often came with success, though she was careful not to reveal too much. What Caleb didn't know was that Victoria was the CEO of a fast-growing real estate development firm with projects across several states. She was used to boardrooms, negotiations, and people trying to impress her. But sitting across from Caleb, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, sincerity without expectation. He wasn't trying to charm her, didn't exaggerate his achievements, didn't hide his struggles. He was simply honest, and that honesty stirred something deep within her. As the evening stretched on, Caleb forgot about the bills waiting at home and the clock ticking toward another early morning. He laughed more than he had in years, surprised by the sound of it. When the night ended, they parted ways with a warmth that lingered long after. Caleb walked to his car feeling lighter, unaware that his life had quietly shifted on its axis. The next morning, reality returned with familiar force. Noah needed help with homework, the car struggled to start, and a notice from the landlord sat on the kitchen counter, reminding Caleb that rent was already late. He pushed everything aside and went to work, fixing leaky pipes and broken lights, doing his best to stay invisible. That was when his supervisor told him someone from corporate was visiting the property that afternoon. Inspections meant pressure, and pressure meant mistakes he couldn't afford. When Victoria walked onto the property later that day, dressed in professional attire and accompanied by a small team, Caleb froze. Recognition hit him like a wave. The woman from the blind date wasn't just a stranger. She was clearly someone important. Embarrassment and fear crept in as he realized how much of his life he had laid bare the night before. He expected her to pass by with polite distance, to pretend they had never met. Instead, she met his eyes with a calm smile that said everything without words. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed more often. Victoria asked questions about the property, about Caleb's ideas for improvements, about his perspective on tenant needs. For the first time, someone in a position of power actually listened to him. Slowly, subtly, opportunities began to appear. A recommendation. A training program. A promotion that came with better pay and flexible hours. Caleb struggled internally, torn between gratitude and pride. He didn't want charity. He wanted to earn his way forward. Victoria seemed to understand this instinctively. She challenged him, pushed him to grow, and treated him like a man capable of more, not someone to be rescued. Through hard work and late nights of study after Noah fell asleep, Caleb rose to the challenge. Months passed, and the changes in his life became undeniable. The apartment felt warmer, bills were paid on time, and Noah smiled more, sensing the shift even if he didn't fully understand it. Caleb himself stood taller, carrying hope where despair once lived. And through it all, Victoria remained a steady presence, her respect for him deepening as she watched him step into his potential. As their connection grew, so did the weight of what that first night had set in motion. Two people from vastly different worlds, bound together by an act of kindness and a moment of honesty. Caleb often reflected on how close he had come to saying no to that blind date, how easily he could have stayed home and let another door remain closed. Before this story reaches its end, I want to ask you something special. Please comment the word kindness below if you believe that simple acts of compassion can change lives in ways we never expect. In time, Caleb realized that the greatest gift Victoria had given him wasn't opportunity or stability, but belief. Belief that he was more than his losses, more than his circumstances. And Victoria, in turn, found in Caleb a reminder of why she had started her company in the first place, to build not just structures, but lives. Near the end of this journey, as Caleb tucked Noah into bed one quiet evening, he understood that life hadn't magically become perfect. There were still challenges ahead, still fears and uncertainties. But there was also hope, solid and real, standing where despair once ruled. All because one night, one tired single father said yes to filling in for a friend. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that your own life can change in a single unexpected moment, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Caleb's life didn't change because he met a CEO. It changed because kindness met honesty, and two strangers chose to see each other not for what they had, but for who they were. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything.